welcome back to the In My Beach Boys podcast. I am Adam Schreiner, co-host here with Matthew Hartz, and we are just trekking through the Beach Boys late 70s now. We got 3 years we're going to cover in this episode. I listened to 3 albums over this 3-year span, which I liked, and we'll get into all that. First, let's do our social media. YouTube, you can just look up Matthew Hart's music, and then you can check out all the cool background and stuff that Matthew has in his little Beach Boy museum here. He has a nice little shot today of a bunch of books, it looks like.
You have a nice little shot.
Yeah. Those are all that's all your stuff, though.
Yeah, that's in it. Yeah, very cool stuff.
And then you can find us Matthew on Facebook. Just look up Matthew Hartz. Look for a little kid with a banjo in his hand, and that's where he posts most of his stuff about the podcast and covers and all that. And then we have Instagram, Matthew Hartz Music, and Twitter, Matthew_Hartz. And yeah, just subscribe, review, leave comments, interact with us. We love seeing the comments on YouTube, and it whenever we get a comment.
Thank you to the people that have already reached out. It's really cool.
Yeah, we definitely like to do this for ourselves, but we like seeing the feedback too. So we appreciate any feedback we get. So let's get into this. Actually, I wanted to tell you something. So there's this show on Amazon Prime, and it's called The Boys, and I'm a superhero movie guy, right? And this show is a superhero movie or superhero show that Amazon Prime released a couple years ago. I think this is their 3rd season that they're getting into now. But in this show, the superheroes are actually like the villains. Like they actually are, they're bad, like not all of them, they're like bad guys. Like the guy that's like Superman's like a terrible person, will like rape women and kill people and like awful, like they are the absolute villain. So on their trailer for their new season, guess what song was the song for?
Probably Heroes and Villains.
Heroes and Villains. And so when I saw that come across, I was like, look at that. Beach Boys still getting, and this show's a hit. Like this show's one of Amazon's biggest shows.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And Heroes is, I mean, a lot of people know Heroes and Villains, but it's still kind of a semi-obscure.
Absolutely. I was actually thinking, I bet you a lot of people don't even realize that is the Beach Boys.
Oh, wow.
I bet you they just wouldn't even think, because it is, like you said, it's a little obscure. It's not what people would affiliate with Beach Boys, I guess the general public anyway,
Another cool thing about that is in the 80s, we're not going to cover it today, but it was, you were saying that, I thought there was a pretty good book that dug up a lot of the dirt. That's why it's not one of my favorite books, and it's not very comprehensive anyway, but it's called Heroes and Villains because it explores the good and the dark sides of what was
going on with the Beach Boys.
It does dig up all the stuff that I don't like to necessarily focus on, but you have to tell some of it. But that book was called Heroes and Villains for that reason.
Yeah, no, and that I just thought it was I don't know,
very cool.
I've been watching that show, and I started watching that show before I was doing this podcast, and so I don't even think I would have not known that was the Beach Boys.
That's why we got to go back through those.
And I need to really dig into those first albums that we didn't do in season 1. So anyway, so you've been doing some. You got that jazz festival you've been hanging out at.
Oh yeah, there's I've been doing some shows, and there's in June in Weiser, Idaho, about 70 miles north of here. They have the National Old Time Fiddlers contest, and that's a whole week-long festival. That's next week, but they also have a swing and jazz and folk music festival. It's basically the same place the week before, and it's just insane, and all kinds of musicians from all over the place. Actually, I got a really great story to share on that, and I was going to do it a little bit later. Might as well
tell
it now. I've been up there for a few days, and I ran into a man I haven't seen or talked to and visited with for maybe 30 years. His name's Zeke Little.
Okay.
And he's a really great musician, great guitar player. And I remembered from the old days that he had some sort of a Beach Boy history real early. And so I saw him, we got to talking, and I said, Zeke, I remember something about early Beach Boy stuff. And he kind of smiled, and I said, I can't really remember, because it was so long ago. And he goes, well, I went to college with Al Jardine.
Oh.
And and at first I immediately went to El Camino, which is the college that he and Brian attended in LA together a little bit. And so I'm thinking that, and he goes, no, it was at Ferris State in Michigan where Al had gone back. And so they lived in the same dorm together.
Oh, wow.
And they played together.
No kidding.
Zeke
not just in went to the same school.
They actually lived in the dorm and they played music together. He said that they had, it was him and Al and a guy named Herb. I want to get Grunts, I think is what he said. GR, there's a Z on it, but something, you told me the third guy and what they did. And it's just, it was insane. I mean, the details that he had about how they actually met, and they actually met kind of in the school courtyard, and they both had guitars on, and you play, kind of like how he ran into Brian. That was more of a thing back then. I guess you probably would see guys with guitars strolling around on college campuses,
right,
in the middle of that or whatever. But anyway, I got to talk to him a lot. I said, man, would you ever be interested in talking about this on a podcast? He goes, let me collect my thoughts a little bit more on that. But it's just, we always talk about how my swing and jazz and folk music worlds collide with the Beach Boys stuff. And this was just a magical moment.
So does he live locally?
No, don't get me to lying now. I think Zeke lives in California someplace now.
Okay.
I'm not. I need to ask him about that. But
all right. But he was up here you met him.
He's still up there. I'll see him again when I go back up today.
Nice. So we gotta convince him to come down, drive 70 miles to come to a little interview for.
Oh no! If we ever do get something like that, I'm sure we'll get it remotely from him.
All
Or
right.
something,
I was gonna say
schedule's a little tight.
Yeah. No, with all the music going on. Well, that's really cool that you got to bump it to him. And you'd actually met him before, though.
Yeah, I knew him from my very earliest days at those festivals. That's like when I was 12, 13 years old.
Oh, nice.
Is when I first, but that's when I last saw him, kind of too, is in those teenage years. And so this is me visiting,
right?
A whole different paradigm.
Yeah, but absolutely.
Anyway,
all right. Well, that's some cool little Beach Boys connections there. But yeah, let's jump into this episode. Because where I'm left off in the history is that they just had an all-out brawl on emptied the planes.
And behind the scenes, even though they got things kind of patched up and moving along corporation-wise, it still wasn't very friendly at all. It was at a certain point, this thing is a machine, right? Mm-hmm. That they depend on financially. It's just, makes it hard to let go. So they stayed together.
Yeah, for sure.
But as I was...
Stay together for the kids, right?
Probably. As I was researching this, I was reminded of how much I actually do love parts of these albums. And in their time, they... they weren't received terribly well, and I don't think were well thought of. And even later on in Beach Boy history, people would say, well, we're going to look at that time period and not see a lot of significant stuff. And that's not proven to be true. This is an important part of the story of the Beach Boys here. And there's some good music for sure.
I definitely actually enjoyed. I went into these albums thinking I wasn't going to enjoy them, and I actually ended up really, I don't know why.
Well, I kind of set you up for that a little bit.
When I just, because as I have said in the previous episode of 15 Big Ones, that wasn't my favorite. I literally have no reason to put that album on because there was not a song on there, but there are multiple songs on all of these albums that it's like, and I do have I like that up-tempo sort of feel, and there are a lot of good songs like that, and even some of the slower ones I really enjoy too.
I was thinking about, as I was listening, I know that you got to have a penchant for the more upbeat ones, and I'm knowing that some of the slow ones that are my favorites, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see if we align on that. So anyway, historically,
one thing I wanted to say is I love saying I'm wrong, everybody. I just really love it because... With Love You, I mentioned that might have been the last product for Warner Reprise. And as I was doing research for this, I think M.I.U. is sort of the last product for them. And there's a lot of overlay between Brother Reprise and Caribou, Jim Guercio's thing, and then CBS, who I think was distributing it all in the late 70s. So I'm going to quit saying anything about any of that stuff. I think, except for, I do think now that M.I.U. was the last official product, at least for Brother Reprise, and maybe Caribou had something to do with it, but the next LA Light was CBS for sure distributed.
Got it.
I hope that helps, and
hey,
I hope anybody cares about it. Really.
It's not written in stone, and like you said, those details I already forgot, so
right. Well, in 77, after Love You, Mike and Al, well, first of all, they get Brian's corporate vote. We talked about that. So so basically, Brian gives Mike his vote, and so they're out voting Dennis and Carl 3-2 all the time on stuff, and that affects everything. But anyway, Mike and Al take Brian to the M.I.U. Facility in Iowa, and they start the recordings for what was supposed to be a Christmas album.
Oh, really?
Yeah, M.I.U. was supposed to be a Christmas album. They got it done, or what they got done of it, they presented and was, what do you think? Rejected.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay, so in early 78, they came back to California. I think it was at quite a few different studios, and they reworked the album with some of the same tracks that they used as Christmas tracks.
Oh,
and put new lyrics to them to release it as a non-Christmas album now that they weren't in Christmas season and weren't going to do that anymore. And so some of these tracks, as we go through them, I'll tell you, they were originally Christmas tracks.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that part of it.
So have you heard those?
They're all, well, actually they put out, they have the Christmas album from 64, right? And in, it was I think the 2000s, maybe the late 90s, sometimes they put out something called Ultimate Christmas, which is the first Christmas album. And then they put out all these tracks that were going to be the Christmas things that are M.I.U. stuff mainly, and some other stuff from the later period on what they call the Beach Boys' Ultimate Christmas.
Oh, and
so they're officially released.
They are officially, okay.
Yeah,
was that the first you had heard them? Was there
the Christmas stuff? No, I'd heard them on bootlegs before. Yeah. So that's the kind of the story of what's going on with M.I.U. I think it's an early part of 78, and maybe it had something to do with the new CBS contract coming up. I'm not really sure. I know it was a huge deal and a huge tour. There's some pretty big name people involved with promoting it, but it was in Australia. And then it's famous, the Beach Boys 1978 Australian tour, and it needed to be good. Brian needed to be there and be healthy. These were stipulations of the contract, right? Uh-huh. And they wanted all 6 of them. I need to say that I think Bruce was on this, because they brought Bruce back in sometime in 78, and then he goes on to help them produce LA Light and Keepin the Summer Alive. But once Bruce is back in here, he's in, right?
Okay, and I did notice Bruce on the cover of Keepin Summer Alive.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, I was like, I didn't know if we had talked about him coming back, but
no, this is when he comes back. And there's a little bit more of a story to that, but I just kind of mentioned it because I thought of it with this Australian tour. Okay. Anyway.
Okay, sorry, real quick. So he helped them with
not M.I.U.
Not M.I.U. He helped them with the other two.
I'm thinking he probably did some singing on M.I.U. and I need to listen closer to some of I wouldn't be surprised if he's on M.I.U. somehow. But then once L.A. Light comes in, they actually give him a call and say, "We need your help."
Got it.
You know, and so they've got this big tour that was heavily publicized, sold out. They're still hotter than heck, especially in Europe and Australia and stuff, from kind of the endless summer bleed over, just only a few years before that. But this was going to be a big tour for them. Uh-huh. And Brian had Stan and Rocky with him. So he's traveling with them, and they're keeping him away from bad stuff, supposedly. Well, somebody, and it's been attributed to one of the other Wilson brothers, but Brian got heroin somehow. And Stan and Rocky found him catatonic and had to throw him in a shower and keep him from...
This was in Australia?
Yeah. This was, I didn't think, probably in the very beginning, and that just rocked everything, you know. Dennis was on extremely good behavior. He was the strongest of the Wilson brothers on this tour, and is actually attributed to Carl, who might have given somebody money. Carl was not doing too well at this time. This is his worst period substance abuse-wise, and there's also you can find it on the internet. You just Carl Wilson drunk will get you there. Oh. And it's him doing God Only Knows, I think, in Sydney, Australia, and he is so, I mean, it sounds like Elmer Fudd. That's what it's often described as, Elmer Fudd singing God. I mean, it's just really, really bad. And then I think it was that same show, he just fell over.
Jeez.
And then the next morning they had to have a big press conference, and that's on the internet too, where Carl's saying he took some, I think, Xanax and mixed it with a Mai Tai, and you know, probably way more than that going on. But so the tour is famous for that, and they got everybody together after these instances and said, "Okay, boy," and they wanted, actually, you know what? I got to back up. I think that Dennis is the one that took the heat for that, and the rest of everybody, like Mike, and I know for sure Mike, they wanted Dennis sent home. And David Frost, who was a big TV guy back then and had a TV show, he was running that tour, and he said, we're not going to do that. And at that same, this was a big band meeting, Rocky, when Brian's minder, accused Carl of something associated with the whole drug fiasco, and Carl gave him an FU, and Rocky went over and just punched him right in the face.
Damn.
And when Carl came to a few minutes later, he said, "Well, I guess the photo sessions aren't going to go too good."
Damn.
And so I get off that for a while, but I mean, here's what's going on behind the scenes.
Right. And so it's just kind of, even like how you described that, it seemed like there was a lot of almost like hearsay of who said what, and is that kind of how it is? Or
no, I think there's more rock solidness to all that. It's just something that I choose not to really focus on a bunch. And so when I'm telling that, so I do know that both Carl and Dennis were to blame for some things.
Okay.
And then Carl had the public episodes of just, and that was just the absolute low point for him.
And so they had this contract for this tour to not have any sort of shit. and then it just exploded almost immediately.
Yeah, well, I don't know how many shows they got in when all that, but it's just, God, it's just a nightmare for everybody involved. But it was still very successful, and the public that went to the concerts, except for the Carl drunk thing, they were just so pleased and so happy. That tour was considered very successful after it was over.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's like being told not to do something, so it makes you want to do it more or something.
And then again, at that time we knew nothing of these things.
Right.
So that's kind of a fun thing for people to know. Also, cool aside, we were living in. I remember when we were living in Blackfoot when I was 7. And that was when I first, I guess Mom did all this stuff. I first became a member of the Beach Boys fan club.
Oh, nice.
And I remember getting my first newsletter from Alice of the BB. She's the gal that started the Beach Boy fan club. And I remember going to the mailbox and pulling out that little newsletter. And on the front of it, Keepin the Summer Alive hadn't come out yet, but it was a drawing of that. And I still remember, ooh, this is very cool.
Yeah.
Because anyway, so I was a member of the Beach Boy fan club at 7 years old.
Nice.
And I think my mom facilitated all that. And then we're going to be talking about my first Beach Boy concerts in a couple years. And I think back to all that stuff. And I thought, who found out and who made arrangements and who did it? I'm a sneaking suspicion I need to talk to my mother a lot more about all that stuff, because really she's, she was the one videoing the
feeding all that.
Well, when Brian came on Mike Douglas, I told you she got the video camera out and was filming me watching the deal, and she knew how much it all meant, and I've got to believe that she facilitated. I would have not known how to get on the Beach Boy fan club.
No, definitely at 7 years old. Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, so that was going on. M.I.U. ends up getting released in fall. So let's start talking about M.I.U., I guess. And we've already talked about the fact that it was originally a Christmas album. We haven't talked about it's actually, hey, you're going to like this. Sunflower is not the worst charting album in Beach Boy history.
This is?
They're tied.
Oh, tied.
I looked it up for M.I.U. because I was just tired of not really knowing my late 70s chart positions.
Okay.
And I'm like, 151? Wait a second. And I remember hearing that before too. So M.I.U. and Sunflower are tied for the lowest charting. Well, wait a second. Summer in Paradise coming up in the 90s, maybe that didn't. Yeah, so there's other things, but I mean, that's right there.
Up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, She Got Rhythm, which is the cover that we did, which was turned out really cool, and your swing that you did. I like your version. I like this version. Just a good way to kick off an album.
Brian's singing on M.I.U. is much improved and different than it was on 15 Big Ones and Love You. His falsetto is a little bit rough here, but I love how they open the album with an upbeat tune that Brian's singing falsetto on. It's kind of a throwback,
Yeah. Well, and if, real quick before we get too far into these, since we have three, kind of might move through these quicker than we have. Mm-hmm. I even intentionally didn't take like super in-depth notes unless there's something that really stuck out to me.
Yeah.
But Come Go With Me, is this a cover?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
that's what I thought.
The Del Vikings in the 50s did the original version of that.
Well, and I think it was a great choice for the Beach Boys.
Well, it's Al. Al has a lot to do, brings a lot of the covers in the late 70s. And I think a remixed version of this, it was released as a single during this time, but I think they re-released it a couple years later and actually did pretty damn good.
Oh, wow.
Come Go With Me specifically.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to say about She's Got Rhythm is in the middle of that, it's got kind of a disc, kind of the little bridge or chorus that breaks down in the middle of that. It's got like a disco tropical type feel, which kind of permeates a lot of these albums. If you weren't alive back then, you don't know how much disco there was around and what that all actually felt like, and what all the TV shows. I wanted to mention that stuff like The Love Boat, Fantasy Island, Three's Company. This music on these records instantly take me back to like those TV shows and those things. It's just like, oh my God, this music feels like those.
That time.
Yeah. And it really is a big part of the flavor.
Yeah, no, and I definitely noticed that. Maybe not so much in M.I.U., but I feel that in the other two a little more so. Hey Little Tomboy, wasn't a big fan of this one. Brian singing on this one, yeah. And this is when I kind of noticed that his voice did sound better. This was like the first time where like I would like it like clicked. I'm like, wow, he's actually like he sounds healthier. I don't know.
Well, it's a little bit rougher because this one actually, Carl said he started this in '76 during the 15 Big Ones.
Oh,
stuff, and
so it makes sense. I don't really like it.
It's one of my favorites. The music on it is always. I remember first hearing it and going, "Oh God, that's cool." It's definitely because of musical reasons. It's one of my favorites on the album.
Because of what's going on, like what they're as far as the arrangement goes, or
well, just the chord progressions and the way that's what always gets me about Brian stuff.
Then we have Kona Coast.
Yes, which was originally Mele Kalikimaka.
Oh,
which was, or I think they were gonna either call it that or Kona Christmas. There's an old standard called Mele Kalikimaka, but they have Christmas lyrics to this one. I want to spend my Christmas on the Kona Coast in Hawaii.
Oh, I see.
And so it was just changing the lyrics a little bit on that one. So that's an original Christmas tune. That's Mike and Al wrote it, but I love the way Brian reprises the song Hawaii from the early part of their career. He does the old falsetto part from that and throws in a little hook from the old Hawaii song.
Okay, so now I'm going to be ignorant here. What Melikaliki? That one?
That's that one. I think
that's a Beach Boys song.
No, Mele Kalikimaka is what they were going to call Kona Coast, I think, or they were going to call it Kona Christmas.
Oh, I see. Okay,
does that make any sense?
Yeah. Now I got it. Now I'm with you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Peggy Sue.
That's another. It was another single from the album. Again, Al's thing, and this is a Buddy Holly cover.
Okay.
From the 50s again, but I like this okay, but I still prefer Come and Go With Me.
Yeah, the intro reminded me of, just like the very beginning reminded me of You're So Good to Me. There's a
like, I can see that.
There's a little part that, and I hadn't really listened to that song in a while, so I went and found it, which I didn't even know. I had to go search. I didn't even know what album it was on, and then I found it, and that was one of the songs that my dad had on his like greatest hits. And
because that's on the Endless Summer. And,
okay, and so that one. I liked Peggy Sue. I thought it was good. Is You're So Good to Me? Was that a cover?
No,
that was original. Okay,
tune.
okay. Won't You Come Out Tonight? I love this song.
Oh, that's a Brian and Mike. And this one, there's greatest hits packages that cover all the 70s stuff. And usually we'll have Won't You Come Out Tonight from M.I.U. She's Got Rhythm. Maybe Come Go With Me. Okay. Those are the ones that'll generally
be on those other ones.
On the compilations from this. So Won't You Come Out? I was thinking about that this morning. It's a Brian tune.
Yeah, that one was definitely stuck in my head. It's just funny how even some songs I'm like I don't really like them, but they end up stuck in my head. But this one I enjoyed, and I caught myself singing it. Sweet Sunday Kind of Love. I like this one too.
Now, see, this is where this is great too. Yeah. I love it. It's just I always like Carl's voice on it.
It's funny, as I said, classic, beautiful Carl voice.
That's the saving grace of it.
Yeah.
It actually has. I put down it's pretty pedestrian.
Yeah.
As far as it's just. It's not one of my favorites, but you cannot deny that Carl's vocal is nice on it, and it's kind of again it fits that time.
Sure.
The lyric ideas and stuff like that. I mean, it's very much of the late 70s.
Bells of Paris? Yeah.
Not one of my favorites.
No, I wrote not a fan. That's all I got on this one. So we'll just move right.
Well, but it's a Brian tune that I think Mike put all that French on top of and everything. He put out a song called Christmas Day in the 2000s, and I immediately this is Bells of Paris. It's a way better song.
Oh, really?
It's actually Bells of Paris with with some slight music differences, but it definitely is that. I recognized immediately. And the chorus, the bells are ringing on Christmas Day. So it's that was the saving grace of a song that I never cared for too much.
Right.
Like a little bit different context saved it for me.
Pitter Patter. Yeah, that's a great one.
Oh,
yes,
that's Brian and Mike and Al wrote this. So I'm guessing Pitter was one of those tunes that there's lots of great footage of just Brian and Mike and Al working at M.I.U. together on the album, and Brian's just having a blast.
Really?
You can just see him; he's pounding on that, smiling at him, and but I think this is. Probably from those, that collaboration.
Yeah,
when they're out there.
Yeah, it's I thought I'd heard it maybe before, but I didn't know if it was. Did you tell me what the single was from this album?
Well, the two, Come and Go With Me, and I think Peggy Sue.
The
two covers.
Two covers.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I know it. I don't know if it was a really great idea. I want to mention though, so on M.I.U. and a lot of the next two albums too, I'm sure. Quite a bit. the musicians are primarily, like on Pacific Ocean Blue, the Beach Boys touring band. So Ed Carter, Billy Hinchy, Carly, Bobby,
Not studio musicians.
Mike. Well, so some every once, but the bulk of the work was done by the Beach Boys touring band, and that they are well recorded albums.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys are all super duper pros.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say
that
I appreciate you guys again.
Yeah. The My Diane. Yeah.
This is where we got to talk a little bit.
Yeah, because this one. Yeah,
I figured it wouldn't.
Yeah,
be,
this
and
one
this
didn't resonate
could be
with
my,
me too,
one of my favorites on the album. And this is when. So I remember I told you that Dennis and Carl were merely visitors to the M.I.U. sessions because they weren't. They went out there. They took Mike and Al took Brian out there and they stayed in dorms and kind of, just kind of hung out and all in the same place. And I don't think Carl and Dennis liked that situation too much. And I don't think that they were too happy to begin with. And so it's always said, but Dennis is singing My Diane.
Yeah.
And there's video of him doing the vocal on the internet, but I've heard it described as Dennis kind of watching the clock until he can catch the plane, go back home.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But this is where we are going to talk a little bit about the Revell Sisters.
Okay.
Okay, so this is when Brian met them, way back in the early 60s, Diane and Marilyn was part of the Honeys, and they had one other younger sister named Barbara. And famously, there's a song on the 1965's Today album called Don't Hurt My Little Sister. When, that line supposedly comes from either Marilyn or Diane about Brian maybe having a crush on Barbara, the younger one.
Oh, interesting.
But then as we go, so Brian had a relationship with Diane.
Right.
Too, while he was married to Marilyn.
Oh.
And it was known, I mean, and I don't want to get into that too much, but this is that Diane.
This is that person.
And they're willing to put that on an album. This is with all these guys knowing what this, Brian's marriage was falling apart with Marilyn big time at this point. I think it was official in 79. But and here he is singing about her sister.
Yeah.
But during the whole spring period, everything, I don't want people to judge that too much. They might, but it's, when you get that famous that early and you live in a little cocoon of people for that long. I mean, I'd like to tell you that's the strangest story I've ever heard about stars in Hollywood and stuff like that. And it's actually some that, we're going to get into even a little bit more of some of the salacious things about Dennis and Mike's relationship coming up in the next episode because we have to, you know what I mean? And that it just is what it is, right? So the tune, I know it's kind of a plodding tune. I was thinking about that when I was listening to it over the last couple of days. Like, I bet you Adam's not going to really like this, but for me, it is a real emotional tune, and it's got some amazing music in it.
on.
The musicians love My Diane.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Actually, the next, the rest of the album, I don't really care for.
We only got a couple left.
Yeah. Well, so it's like the My Diane, Match Point of Our Love, and Winds of Change. They all three of them just really didn't do anything.
Match Point. What's funny about that is people have to you think, what in the hell is this? The music's kind of interesting, and it's a Brian tune, and I'm sure a lot of it's his lyrics too. But Tennis was crazy popular back then. I mean, it was right along with disco, and if you were in a country club, like every, if you were a young rich kid, especially, you played tennis.
Totally.
And so I think of, again, they're trying to pick up on trends at the time.
Sure.
But Brian's doing it a little bit tongue in cheek the whole time. I bet you the whole, he just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And then what? Winds of Change? Anything on
Winds
there?
of Change isn't even a Beach Boy tune. It's
Okay.
the guy. This is Ron Altbach, who comes in about this time. Another friend of Mike's and a great musician, great piano player and arranger. He helped produce the whole album, but he wrote this tune. I do like Brian's falsetto at the very end of it. There's something very mournful and like End of the Beach Boys attached to it, it's pretty cool how much falsetto they got old Brian to do on this record,
Sure.
So anyway,
Okay, so that's M.I.U.
M.I.U.
and then
chart position 151, the album that Dennis Wilson, I think he
Cursed.
just was so upset at Mike at the time. I mean, I don't know if he really felt that poorly about the whole album, but he's the one that said that thing should self-destruct upon release.
Yeah.
But anyway.
One, I think of the three that I listened to, it was probably the least favorite of them for me, probably.
Yeah.
But anyway, so back to some history.
Well, we're gonna, since 78 was the year that the book The Beach Boys and the California Myth came out. I know I've showed this before. This is not the 78 printing of it. The cover of it was just this small picture right here. The original cover was just a big blown up thing of that. This was the thing in 85 when I found it in a bookstore in Houston.
Oh, okay.
When I was going to college, and I just couldn't. I'd been looking for this book forever, and oh my God, here it is! I think I read it in one sitting when I got home, and it's amazing. Well, I called. It had David leaves Santa Monica, California, and I know I've told that story before, but I called him immediately after reading. I found his number just by calling information. I called him and he picked up. We'll tell a little bit about that later. I want to talk about this book. I told listeners maybe in the last episode that, or I can't remember, that this is the most important
the
book. And that's just as I was reading on Wikipedia and other things about David. That's the thing that people say, the book that finally got a lot of the information out there about the inside story of Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. And I wanted to read just a couple of things from the flap that that came out at the time, that a complete a rock biography as ever written, staggering collection of photos and the definitive Beach Boys story. That's Relix Magazine. The guy who wrote that book called Heroes and Villains later on, Stephen Gaines, he said, fascinating, the best Brian Wilson biography so far, and David Leaf has written a classic tale of genius and madness in modern day music business. It goes on and on and on. It was well received at the time. People thought, wow, this is the Beach Boys story. Mike Love wasn't too happy with its focus on Brian, and famously wasn't too nice to David at the time. And so he and David, I don't think ever have had a good relationship. He said one Beach Boy convention, Mike Love tried to stare holes through him while he was in the audience, and but David, David has done a bunch of amazing stuff besides his work with Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. He's a very close friend of Brian's and a manager of Brian's for years.
Okay.
He did the Beautiful Dreamer documentary on when Brian redid Smile in 2004. That's one of my favorite things. Tons of Beach Boy stuff, but he's also done stuff on John Lennon. He's done stuff on Harry Nilsson. He's done, he did some TV work for the Marx Brothers in the 70s. He's a really well-rounded guy. Writes scripts still for movies and TV, and he's a professor at UCLA for doing stuff like that. And that's all after moving out from New York to write about Brian Wilson in the early 70s, right? Just a fantastic guy. I will bring that up. I got done reading that book and I looked that up and I took a chance and called him and he picked up. And in that day and age, this wasn't, the late 80s were not a time when the world was really hip to who Brian and the Beach Boys really were, though, just how important. And there were a few important people like David Leaf and Dominic Priori and a lot of other guys that did their best to keep things going. And I remember when I talked to David, and he was so nice and talked to me for a long time. I said, I don't know anything that's going on. There's no internet at this time. And so it was about a week after talking to him, I got this envelope in the mail, which also had a bootleg copy of Sweet Insanity on it, which I was just, I hope I'm not getting David in trouble on this. But this is from David, Santa Monica, California, to me in Huntsville, Texas at the time. But it's probably 150 pages, and he either did or got a secretary of articles on Brian and the Beach Boys that weren't available. And so I had a treasure trove of things to read because he was going to get me up to speed on Brian. That's how grassroots level these dudes were and how important they were to the whole thing. Thank you, David.
Well, I was about to say that was a really nice thing to do for a fan, just calling you up and saying, you know.
I think that the real hardcore fans like me they knew that they had to, wow, we got to keep this guy going.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, for sure.
Overall, me at this period, people always wonder what happened with me musically besides the Beach Boys. Well, right about this time is a lot because I was learning, I'm playing the guitar, playing the banjo, was going to start learning how to play the fiddle, but I started getting into things like Kiss, AC/DC, Rush, all the stuff we were doing at school, and you started playing with guys that, you know, we play all the songs, and I loved everything. It was just a flood of music. Along with the Beach Boys, you know, and then I was, you know, started getting into the Beatles and the Stones and lots of jazz music. And so my world is just getting rocked on top of all this Beach Boy stuff. And John and I talk about that assembly when I was in third grade. Well, when I was in fourth grade, we were at a different school even, but they knew we did the deal. And so John and I got up at that year's Christmas assembly and we did Little Saint Nick.
Oh, nice.
I was fourth and he was second grade. In 79, I know this is getting book heavy now. My grandma, this says to Matthew on his 10th birthday from Grandma Marvell. So I know I got it in 79. That was my 10th birthday. This was the first book that I ever read because I didn't have David's book back then. And it's got some good stuff in it. It's just not real comprehensive. But I'd never heard about Smile before, or the title Do You Like Worms, and what all these songs. It just piqued this thing of what's all this? Where's that at? Where's it? Just like it. This was the book that really set my imagination on fire about Pet Sounds and Smile. I hadn't even heard all of Pet Sounds at this point, and it's just like I can't really explain, but thanks to Grandma for getting me this book. This is a lot of people don't mention this book. It's an important book to me for sure. Yeah, so we talked about Bruce getting called in. I know he was around in 78, but for sure 79, and we're back in for good. One incident that happened, I think probably summertime in 79, is at the Universal Amphitheater in Los Angeles, and it was sold out, and Beach Boy family, including Audrey, mom was there, but Dennis, I don't know, I think they'd been fighting before, or something boiled over kind of backstage. And when they got out there and started playing anyway, Dennis came off the drum riser onto Mike, and the fists started flying right in front of the audience, and they drug him off the stage. And Audrey was heard to be gasping and like, oh my God, you know, and it was an ugly incident that was well reported, right? You know, this was after the Australia thing. This is after all that stuff in 77 when they almost. So it was just no good.
Yeah.
The relationships
they can't
were
figure it out behind the scenes, huh?
So Dennis was fired or banned from the band at that point unless he could get his substance abuse lined out.
Wow.
Okay. So that's how serious that little incident was.
You go, you know, WWE style in the middle of a concert, then it's kind of valid. I mean, I'm sure that it was somewhat warranted or justified in a sense, but because
he was provoked.
Yeah, but
out of his mind.
Yeah,
too,
yeah, exactly.
which wasn't uncommon for Dennis in the the 70s. Even the early 70s. People talk about him being inebriated and on stage, and oh well, it's part of the deal, right?
Yeah.
On November 17th, I'm going to go ahead and bring this up right now. My first Beach Boys concert.
Okay, so
1979.
And so Dennis, first Beach Boys concert.
Well, that's part of the story,
sorry.
right? Is yes, he was there.
Oh,
and this is in November, right? He got fired and banned because as I'm putting this all together. Well, he was Dennis is an important part of that for promoters and everything like that. You don't, I'm sure that even though they fired him, well, wait a second, we want everybody there. You know what I mean? So anyway, my first I don't know how if mom was who found out about it, but it was in Salt Lake, and we were living in Pocatello at the time, so it's just 160 miles down I-15 to go to that. Uh-huh. We stayed with mom's cousin. We went to Lagoon, and I tried to find that picture today, but we got me and John in matching shirts, and Molly was there and with Dad. Mom must have taken the picture, but it's the day of or the day before the concert, so I couldn't find that picture. But what a magical thing. All 6 of them were there. So the 3 Wilson brothers, Dennis was there playing drums. His arm was broken. One of his arms was in a cast. Don't know what the hell was going on with that. But Brian was there, and I remember how my mom thought it was crazy. Here we were in Salt Lake City, and Brian's playing at a white grand piano and just smoking like a chimney the whole time, just chain smoking, one right after the other,
Wow.
and that stands out. I remember when we were going to the concert, we were convinced, and probably because of Mom, and it's on one of her albums, Summer Days, we were sure they were going to do Salt Lake City, the song Salt Lake City, because we're going to know Salt Lake City.
Oh.
There was a guy in the back, I remember this, who screamed, "Sail on, sailor!" I don't even know if I knew what Sail on, sailor was at that point, but then when I found out later, that's what that guy was talking about.
Yeah.
But what they did play, and I guess I might have already had the album. I didn't think I got it until Christmas, but I knew of the tune. They did Shortening Bread.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which that Shortening Bread has an amazing story behind it. That we're going to get to when we talk about the album, but I do remember that from that concert going, just how crazy. Dennis in the broken arm.
And so, the album hadn't been released yet?
I don't know. I don't know. And I'm trying to think if I got it early. I thought I got it for Christmas, but I'm not quite sure. So
you knew the song, or you did not know the song?
No, I did know.
You did know it.
I
Okay.
did know it,
Okay.
but I don't know if And I remember it being, thinking it was strange,
Yeah.
But I'm only 9 or 10 years old at this point.
True.
So anyway, that is a huge. I still remember that thing. So I think back to how lucky I was to get to even see the Beach Boys in that time period. The one thing we did talk about, the fact that Brian and Marilyn were in the process of separating during this time. Brian was unhealthy enough to be hospitalized a couple times. He wandered off one time in 78 or 79 and ended up hitchhiking down to San Diego, and they couldn't find him. And they found him face down in a gutter, basically.
Jeez.
Right off of Balboa Park, kind of close to where the zoo is.
Wow.
And so it was after one of those things, and he was in the hospital, and I think he said, I think we should separate, and so that's just significant. Marilyn, wonderful person and a big part of the Beach Boys story.
Definitely.
Being his wife through all of that. So anyway, we should start talking about the music from LA Light.
Okay, so we start with Good Timin', which is a great. They kick off this album just like the other one.
This was the big single too.
This was?
It went top 40. It was top 40, and I remember it being in heavy rotation. They did this in Salt Lake, too. I remember it, and I remember the Hart's cousins all were like, have you heard Good Timin' yet? You know, hey, the Beach Boys got a new song, because it was on the radio a lot.
Good Time,
Well, no, I'm probably young enough then that they were 10 when they're like 15, in their late teens. They're really staying up on all the current stuff, listening to the radio all the time in those days. And
right.
So, but yeah. So again, Good Timin' was started in '74 at Gersio's Ranch in Caribou. It was one of the things that they kind of got started that they knew was good. And Dennis, I remember hearing interviews from him and talking to him. He said, Brian and Carl got a great new tune called Good Timin'. It's a new surfer girl. And, it's the fact that it never made it on an album for that long a period until they finally decide 5 years later to finish it. It's just another kind of how stuff goes in their world.
Yeah, totally. Then we go to Lady Linda, which actually I didn't like at first, but then I found myself singing, like that was one that I was stuck in my head, and I think I got to say that I'm kind of a fan now.
Oh, I remember I got this album, I think for Christmas in '79, and along with it, I got one of those twofers, the tan ones with the girls in the bikinis. Okay, so there was the twofer of Wild Honey in 2020. So I got all that, crazy information right about that time. And so, but I vividly remember all of these tunes having an impact on me. Lady Linda was the first time I had ever probably heard Jesu, which they opened this song with a classical piece from Bach, which is known as Jesu, Joy of Man Desiring.
Yeah.
And I was young enough to where I hadn't heard a lot of classical music, and I didn't know that's what I just thought it was beautiful. And then I also knew that they kind of incorporated the music into the front end of the song, and I always loved that introduction, but it's Bach.
Yeah, it's Bach, yeah. Well, and I even, I'm familiar with Bach, so I actually knew that was Bach, but just the incorporation was it's just really nice, and it fits really well, and I like just lyrically, I think the lyrics even fit with.
Well, it's Al. Did I mention that's Al's wife, his first wife at the time. It was Linda Jardine.
Got it.
And they were not together long after this.
Oh,
and the Beach Boys did this in the '80s at the Statue of Liberty, and they turned it into Lady Liberty.
Oh, nice.
Instead of Lady.
Then we go Full Sail, which I liked. That was like a slower one that I liked.
The slower Carl tunes on here, Full Sail and Going South, people generally, it's lounge music. I always have loved them. It's great music. It's just, I can understand the 70s loungy feel, but this one, and I think Angel Come Home and Love Surrounds Me, there was a guy that Gercio, because Gercio's helping produce this record too. He brought in a guy named Jeffrey Cushing Murray to work with both Carl and Dennis to flesh out a few of their tunes. And so this kind of unknown guy comes into LA Light, and he works on Full Sail Going South with Carl, and then Love Surrounds Me with Dennis, and then I think he gets a credit on Angel Come Home too. But I like the Full Sail and Going South too. I think they're great tunes.
Well, on Going South, I wrote slow, but I like it. Which like a lot of the slower ones, I generally don't. But not so much on Love Surrounds Me. I didn't really think. And I'm sorry, Angel Come Home.
Yeah, so
both of those, Angel Come Home and Love Surrounds Me. So who wrote these ones?
Angel's one of my favorite. Angel is a Carl tune that he had Dennis sing. And they're doing it on they did it on a show called Fridays on ABC, and Dennis is not the great, doesn't look like he'd taken a shower in like 2 weeks. And he's up there and he's singing the lead vocal on this while he's technically kind of out of the band, I think.
Right.
But I always have loved this tune, and they even have ripped off parts of Angel Come Home because of the music on it. Love Surrounds Me. There's two tunes on here that were earmarked for Dennis's second solo record, which was not coming together because of his substance abuse and everything.
I actually wrote on Love Surrounds Me that this sounds like something that could be on Dennis's solo album, like his first one, but
exactly and because it's in that same vein, right?
Exactly.
So the high voice on that, I don't want to talk about Bates. So he had gotten divorced for the second time from Karen Lamb Wilson, the gal we talked about that was co-writing a lot of stuff on Pacific Ocean Blue. Well, he started dating Christine McVie from Fleetwood Mac.
Oh.
She helped kind of write this tune, and she's that high woman voice. So you got a Beach Boys Fleetwood Mac tune there on Love Surrounds Me.
Wow. I'm going to have to actually re-listen now with that context.
Yeah. So, and I, it's not, coming up, Baby Blues, different story for me. But anyway, that's Love Surrounds Me, and we'll go, and side one, I think, was Sumahama.
Which I loved.
That's a Mike tune.
Yeah.
All Mike again, I think.
Yeah.
I think even the music, some people don't like the kind of kitschy, it's kind of like the French on Bells of Paris.
Yeah.
Does he sing part of it in Japanese on the record? I think he does. Sing one verse in Japanese.
Yeah, well, and it's, my meditation background, like that Oriental type Zen, that just...
I love it too, though. I think it's a great tune. Yeah. I think it's a great tune.
Here Comes the Night. So I made a joke when we were talking about which cover he was going to do. I was like, how about you do a full version of Here Comes the Night?
Well, then I mentioned you haven't heard Wild Honey yet.
And so is it a 10-minute track on Wild Honey?
No, it's just a 2-minute song. Let's talk about this disco thing, because disco was so huge, and there were lots of bands that were putting out extended mixes for people to dance to at disco clubs, right?
Oh, okay.
And so Bruce, that was one of his things as he came in. He says, "Hey, let's take," because he loved the Wild Honey album, and always is talking about that. And I'm sure he even probably picked that song to do it. But they fleshed it out like a big long thing for people to dance to forever. Dennis hated it, wouldn't participate, didn't want. Was so against the disco stuff. He just said, I'm no way. And then their fans, they debuted it at a concert at Radio City Music Hall in New York. They had people walk out. They had boos, and it was pretty much gone from the set not too long after that. They
tried to play the disco version.
Yeah,
this
and they'd never even done the regular version live,
okay.
but it wasn't. It was just that the Beach Boys were going disco.
Got it.
People were
not.
No, that's not you guys, and that's what Dennis. This ain't us. This is for sure. And so they're But they pitched it. I mean, my God, they did a whole, a great, the 12-inch single on this. I mean, with they
disco
put it out,
single.
Yeah, you never had a single that was as big as a regular LP.
Yeah.
This is also, I picked this up. I can't remember, but this is a promotional copy that was only used for DJs and stuff that I got of the same thing. It's not. I don't care for the thing too much.
Well, it's funny, is even when I was like, where this came out of nowhere. Like, you're just listening to the album, and these 3 albums I was listening to a lot while I was doing work around my house, and so I just was like listening. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the same song, and I'm like, this is a 10-minute track. Like, I'm used to maybe being like, wow, that's a really short Beach Boys little number, but to have a track that was this long, that kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, if you weren't around back then, and didn't have the context, it wouldn't make any sense at all. But lots of people were doing things like this, to play in disco clubs.
Yeah, so then we get into Baby Blue, which another slow one that I actually didn't mind, and like the slower ones on this album, I just, for whatever reason, they didn't bother me as much. I liked actually almost all the songs.
It might have been a kind of a leftover from Pacific Ocean Blue, but it was definitely, I think, going to be on Bamboo. But it's Karen, the previous wife 2 times, and Greg Jacobson, the guy that Dennis's friend that made Pacific Ocean Blue and wrote Forever with him and everything like that. And it's just I have the music is gorgeous here, and especially that bridge because Carl sings the front end of it. He doesn't write, and then Dennis comes in late at night when the whole world's sleeping. I dream of you. Woo.
Yeah.
Big tune for me.
Yeah. Well, we already talked about Going South, and then Shorten and Bread. And you said, because I remember you mentioned it. It's
Ding Dang.
It's Ding Dang. Yeah.
But before that he called it Clangin'.
Oh, okay.
And he's been playing it since Carney says she can remember it her entire life, and she was born in '68.
Oh, wow.
She said he would go to the piano and play that one chord ditty work on just the bass. But I mean, think of this: Brian Wilson, musical genius, spends most of his time playing a one chord song at the piano, right?
Yeah.
I told about Roger McGuinn showing up at Roger McGuinn's and already had the damn thing worked out for years, and
Yeah.
you got any speed? And then sits down and starts playing short and bread all night long, and it turns into what they would do for Ding Ding. But they also called this Rolling Up to Heaven. They recorded many versions of this before the 79 short and bread version that you've heard. I mean, there's a 15 Big Ones era one, and there was the Rolling Up to Heaven one was right about that time. But then after he's continued, in the 90s, there's a man named Rob Wasserman that put out an album called Trios, and the first cut is with Brian and Carney. And it's one of my favorite things. It's on my favorite list all the time. It's just this guy, Rob Wasserman, on a stand-up bass, and only Brian on a piano, and Brian and Carney singing. In the middle of it, they go into clanging. And then, I think it was in the late 80s, Paul Schaefer, the guy that ran the band for David Letterman, maybe still does.
Oh,
the keyboard guy with the sunglasses.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he put out a record in the late 80s and got Brian to do a cut with him, and the cut's called Metal Beach, but it's just a bunch of short and bread.
Oh.
So Brian has gotten lots of mileage out of the old short and bread thing. I wanted to kind of tell that story. And I love how when Carney talks about that, he goes, boy, he's been working on that all his. One thing I can remember from what, hearing that on the piano.
Yeah. No, that's funny. No, it's I liked it. I like this album.
Oh, did I? One thing that's cool about that, I wonder if in the 70 or 71 episode, he went to one of those famous house parties and showed up in his bathrobe, and Alice Cooper and Iggy Pop were there. Okay, huge guys at the time, and Alice Cooper was shock rock, kind of Kiss before Kiss, and everything, and so he ends up conning them going back to his house with Danny Hutton of Three Dog Night, and they're just like going, oh my God, we get to go to Brian's house, and he said he got us in there, and Iggy Pop is a pretty famous, like, out there dude. I mean, and just. Anyway, he got him in there singing Short and Bread for hour, and Danny Hutton still says, I remember Iggy Pop getting up. He says, Iggy Pop of all people, he says, I'm leaving. This guy's nuts. After Brian had those guys playing, a lot of that was like a manipulation, right? Yeah. How long are you going to put up with this? How long are you going to sing these parts to Short and Bread? How long?
Yeah.
And then they fight. Even the weird guys had their breaking points,
Yeah. Okay, so then now we're
let's just get into 1980.
Yeah, let's just move right along to 1980.
Yeah. 80, a lot of the same stuff is going on, but they're playing some big shows. Probably one of my favorite shows is with the lineup I got to see twice, all 6 of them. But the last time that they performed in the UK was at a big festival called Nebworth, and it's been turned into an album, and Alan Boyd did a DVD of it that's amazing. It's probably the best footage from that period, and they do an amazing show. Brian puts on a hell of a show. He's clean shaven, which is weird for this time. So it's like he looks young, but there's shows before this and after this that he doesn't. So it just must have been a sweet spot for him. But it's an excellent show from everybody, even with all the shit with Dennis and Mike going on. When Dennis comes out front to sing Surfer Girl with them, puts his arm around Mike, and they swing together and sing the dance, and they smile at each other. This is after Dennis has flown off the stage, and you could tell Mike's smiling back at him.
Yeah,
they all loved each other on
like a brother. When you said like you cousin, like you said in one of the past episodes, when you spend that much time, like even if you love someone like a brother, you could still hate him like a brother.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
If anyone hasn't seen the Nebworth stuff, go out and look at that, because it's really that's a good picture of what all the Beach Boys were like together, before Dennis died.
Right.
And, it's just a good document. I love that. And then, so that was in June. It was right around Brian's birthday because they sang happy birthday to him.
Oh,
It was
nice.
his 38th birthday, I think. And then on the 4th of July, they played their first concert at the Washington Monument. 500,000 people.
Wow.
It was on HBO, and they did this for they were the annual act on the 4th of July. 500,000 people look that up. 500,000 people. 500,000.
That's insane.
I'll show you. We got pictures, overhead pictures of it too, of the Washington Monument. There were other acts on the bill, but the Beach Boys were headlining, right? And it was the 4th of July, right? And so it wasn't like everybody was just coming to a Beach Boy concert.
But still.
Yeah. So that's and it was, that's part of what made them America's band. They were America's band after Endless Summer, as a matter of fact, and that's why this is what. So this has a lot to do with all of their, continuing their legend at this point. Even though they're not getting along and they're not putting out the strongest albums, they're still doing shit like this.
Right.
And I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to December.
Okay.
My second Beach Boy concert. Now, what's funny is I know my folks didn't know they were coming to Pocatello, or I might the next year, or I might not have gone to Salt Lake. Well, anyway, they were actually coming through our hometown, and they were going to be at the Mini Dome,
which is what? What a Mini Dome is the
whole arena now, but it's Idaho State University, ISU. It's their big football indoor thing, and
the biggest venue in
Pocatello. Yeah. We still would have, but I think it was after the Salt Lake concert that we found out they were coming to Pocatello, and my parents for sure were gonna take me, and so I was excited about that. It was the same lineup. Brian, same piano, still smoking.
It doesn't matter.
But I do remember on this show, because I was closer. We were closer than we were at the Salt Lake show. And I remember being able to see them all a little bit better. And really strange for this period, and I had never seen one before, Carl used on a couple tunes a Rickenbacker, which he didn't do at this time at all as I look back, but I didn't even know what that was back at that time. And what kind of a guitar is that? It had the strange wedge-shaped F-hole on, you've seen that. And so I remember that. He had that. And then the Beach Boys had just flown in from Hawaii, where they had taped a special for the Mike Douglas show right on the beach. Guess who's there? Dennis. And then Dennis was with them in Pocatello again.
When he's
I think at this point he's probably back in for sure. But there's other times, we'll talk about it, when he's important times when he's not.
Interesting.
So and then kind of a funny little aside is this was the first time I remember sitting with John and my mom and dad, and what's that smell? Looked around, and there's this older man and some people, and they look like they're passing a funny little cigarette back and forth together. I remember, what's that? My dad turned my head back around like that. So kind of ironic that you smell cannabis for the first time in Pocatello, Idaho.
Yeah, right.
So that's that.
Well, I think it's interesting the fact that 6 months prior to that, they're playing in front of 500,000 people, and then how many people you think were at?
Well, it was sold out, and it was, but they were putting together shows like that. They were playing anywhere from a few thousand people,
right?
But it was they were always they were really good. If you look through their concert tours, even when they're playing the massive ones, they're going to the smaller towns and playing the smaller venues and giving everybody.
That's awesome.
It's even when they were huge.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, because you don't really see that. I mean, even being in Boise, we get skipped over from a lot of really good, bands and stuff. So
and golly, here I am not talking about. Hey, Salt Lake, back up just a little bit. It's my concert program from Salt Lake, and I think this is the Love You. So they might have used it for a couple of years, but this thing I've got. Some of the pictures were cut out and put on my wall at the time. So that's the Love You program. But then at the Pocatello show, I got my Keepin the Summer Alive program, and for sure, I got to get new copies of these because I cut out lots of this, but I love this. But then I also got my shirt that I threatened to try to put myself in before the episode today, and Adam said, "Don't do it."
Yeah, that's a little small. Maybe if
But that's an original
meant
Keepin the Summer Alive.
meant for a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah, so special stuff for me.
Yeah,
and I again, the fact that I got to see all 6 of those guys in that classic lineup, everybody plus Bruce.
Yeah.
I'm just thankful forever. There's a lot of people that I know that say, "What?
Yeah,
you got to see that?" Huh?
Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, if you pull that Keepin the Summer Alive, because this is the album cover as well. Mm-hmm. This is actually my favorite album cover. Mm-hmm. When I first came down into this Beach Boys museum and you were showing me around, this one caught my eye immediately. So I'm glad that we've made it all the way to here, so I could say that of all the cool covers that you have around, this one is my favorite. I love the artwork. I think it is. It's clever. It goes with the title really well.
It's my favorite of their late stuff for sure. And this is the one where I told you when I got the Beach Boy fan club, the first issue was an artist's drawing of not this exact rendering, but it was like and went, ooh, that's cool.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. So we can get into that now, or
let's get into Keepin the Summer Alive,
and then you kick it off with that song.
Let's talk. Most of this, remember from the Al episode when I told you, he was talking. They said, "Did the Beach Boys ever record anything at your studio?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, a lot of the Keepin the Summer Alive. It was in where?" And he goes, "When was that, Matt?" At 1980.
Oh, this was that moment.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay.
See,
so,
now that I have the actual historical context and all that, now that story makes a little more sense to why he was asking.
There's a documentary called Goin' Platinum that was made about this time, and it doesn't include Dennis because Dennis isn't at most of the sessions. He's not even hardly on Keepin the Summer Alive.
Oh, really?
Even though he's doing the concert, the documentary is very short and very good. Carl gets Brian to open up a little bit, and he gets kind of embarrassed and does some funny things, like starts to answer questions seriously, and then he catches himself, and then he says something like, "I like food. I like creative food," stuff like, but it's just really good, and all the other guys are just laughing their heads off. But it's a really cool document of that period. But Dennis is not on. I mean, I think he may be playing drums on one of the track, but was absent for almost the whole damn thing.
Interesting. So do you like the song Keepin Summer Alive?
I do. And then so Carl had just started a collaboration with Randy Bachman of Bachman Turner Overdrive. They called that BTO, I think is what, and they were a huge 70s band. They had the song Taking Care of Business.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, well, this is Taking Care of Business, the exact same chord progression.
Oh, really?
With just a different set of lyrics over that. I don't know if they did that exactly on purpose, but it's Randy Bachman just recycled one of his old tunes and but I love the tune, and Carl kicks ass on the vocal and has a great guitar solo on it. When they would play it live, it was always that Nebworth show, they played that live, and Brian is he's only playing the piano right, but he is getting into it. He likes that tune.
Nice. Oh Darlin'.
What do you think about Keeping the Summer Alive?
Oh,
it's a good rocker.
I put a good
when it's
jammer.
ice cream weather, get the gang back together.
Yeah,
roll down the windows and drive.
Yeah, no, it's it's a good, and like Keeping Summer Alive. It's like a total summer good feeling song.
Yeah. What about Oh Darlin'? Now get ready here.
I like it.
Oh
yeah, I love it.
You know what is so funny? You will see
it's super
more
catchy.
People. You and me both, right? I've seen more bad shit said about this song, about how the album opens and then it evaporates like they're idiots. This is on my Beach Boys favorite list. This is a big smiley face for me, and it's one that I've been waiting to tell people that is what, because it gets so much it doesn't get a lot of props at all. I love the song. It's almost got two bridges in the middle of it. The music is just phenomenal. And someday I'll play you Brian's demo of it where he's singing it instead of Carl, and it's real emotional. So I love this tune. I always have, and I'm disappointed when I see other people not liking it, but hell with them.
Well, hey, I like it, so
good.
And you never know with me, sometimes I'll really like a song, other songs they just don't hit me right. Some of Your Love, I like this one too.
This is kind of reminiscent of Won't You Come Out. It's kind of that same style that they were writing in, and it's Brian and Mike, I think, that wrote it. So I think it's a continuation of that.
Yeah, and it's they do something cool with the vocals that I like. I don't remember exactly what, but there's like a cool thing that they did with the vocals that kind of like caught me. But Living with a Heartache, not a song I would normally like, but I really, really enjoy this song. Like this is like I even got in my car last night when I was heading home and put the song on because it was stuck in my head.
So Randy Bachman.
Another one.
BT. This was the second. They wrote a few songs for the album, but these are the two that made it. And they specifically kind of made it to do like a country feeling. Yeah. So I just think it's brilliant in the middle of that record, And I think Carl's vocals are always great.
Yeah. It was, like I said, a song that I normally would not like, but when I find myself being like, I need to listen to that song. I mean, that says something. School Day, which is a cover of some kind.
Chuck Berry again. Yeah. So after Surfing USA, which was Sweet Little 16 and rock and roll music. And this is Al again, king of the covers at this part. But he brings this one in. They did this live quite a bit, too, around this time. And it was a good crowd favorite. It's never been my favorite song.
Nothing
it's
special
just
for
old,
me.
It's not my favorite Chuck Berry song. Even.
Yeah. Going On. Like that one.
So this was the single, and this was what everybody was really excited about, and it's got some great music. He kind of recycles even some music from Smile into it, and it's a Brian and Mike pen tune, and it went to 83.
Oh,
not terrible.
Not the worst.
But that was this. I don't know if there was another single from this album or not. So then Sunshine, When Girls Get Together, and Santa Ana Wins. It's when girls get together and Santa Ana Wins are old. They're older tunes. I think When Girls Get Together dates from Sunflower.
Oh, really?
Santa Ana Wins definitely around the Holland period, but they were finished around this time, so they don't sound like they're completely out of time, like Good Time does on Love You, where it's actually the damn Sunflower recording with Sunflower voices. I think what's happening here is more of some of the tracks, stuff's getting used, and they're augmenting it enough to where it sounds like it fits more on the album, right?
Yeah.
And then Sunshine is kind of a neat little ditty, but I think, and it's almost kind of picking up on some of the reggae stuff at the time or something like that. But it wasn't an old tune, but I've never been much on it.
Yeah, all three of those, I don't hate them.
Yeah,
I'm pretty neutral on them. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not going to skip them. I'll just let them play.
I don't listen to those very often.
Yeah,
at all.
So then Endless Harmony. Great way to exit an album.
Yeah.
I love the whole arrangement. I guess my only question is they ended up making the documentary Endless Harmony, right?
Right. And Alan took the title from the song.
Right.
And this is a Bruce song. Bruce wrote this by himself, and he's back in the band right now. And so he called it originally 10 Years of Harmony, but because it was supposed to be sort of a retrospective on the Beach Boys and we sang da, da, da. It really is. It's kind of an abstract telling of the story of the Beach Boys, and so it's really cool. When it got reissued in the early '90s, I remember Endless Harmony was so messed up on the CD, and everybody was pissed and writing it. It was warped on the CD.
Really?
I was listening to it today, and I had put that copy in my computer, and it's just all messed up. And I thought, man, am I the only guy that got No, everybody. That was on every pressing of that first reissue. Wow. The whole Endless Harmony was screwed up, and we had to wait until I can't remember. There was another reissue of Keepin the Summer Alive that finally came out and corrected it.
Wow.
But.
Huh. But yeah, those are. I mean, we just hammered through the 3 albums, the 3 years.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, in 1980, at the end, and like I was looking in the book the other day, it's right about December 30th. So right, the Beach Boys got their star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which is cool. And you can see they've got pictures of them kneeling down by their star and everything. Deal. But guess who wasn't there?
Brian,
the Beach Boy. No, Dennis wasn't there. Dennis wasn't there, and I guess the reporters were yelling out, "Where's Dennis? Where's that?" And Bruce would say, "He's surfing.
Nice.
He's at the beach."
Nice, you know? Nice response.
No, instead of drunk. Or,
yeah,
or whatever. But so that's kind of the end of 80. I know we skipped over a lot in these. In this episode, as far as some of the history goes, it's just because we are going to try to compress things in and especially the next couple of episodes, getting to the end, because there's less impactful music and just the story needs to be compressed a little bit for us to do it like it just makes sense. And so I apologize if there's something in this episode that I left out for somebody that they think is really important, and would love to hear from you anyway,
please leave a comment in a nice fashion on down below. But we're going to talk about, I know we had kind of planned out the next couple episodes, and so we're doing Dennis.
We're going to do a Dennis,
full Dennis
Wilson episode next time, and because we're going to incorporate that in with telling a little bit after we do the Dennis episode, we'll get back into the brief stuff that happens in between 80 and 83 with the Beach Boys before he passes away.
Okay.
But we're going to do a Dennis episode, and then there's probably going to be an episode that encompasses most of the 80s, and then one or two after that, and then we're going to do an episode on Mike too.
Right. So we'll cover all the each Beach Boy will.
Yeah,
each Wilson / Love.
Except for Brian, because the whole damn thing.
Well, and we do have the Brian songwriting episode in the first season as well, which is like you said, the whole thing is essentially about Brian. So, with that being said, I think we'll just wrap this one up.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Happy 60th to the Beach Boys once again. Keep that going until it's
I ordered my Sounds of Summer stuff. This guy got my deluxe L6 LP coming.
And when's that coming?
It dropped today.
Oh, so you could get it at any moment?
It should be.
Oh.
Yeah. And then, but there's no new music on it, but there's some new mixes. And,
cool.
And a lot of the packaging is, but I'm getting both the 3 CD set and the 6 LP set of the same thing. It's all music I already know.
We might have to maybe talk about the packaging or something briefly. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right. Anyway.
And happy 80th birthday to Brian in a few days on June 20th.
Oh, that's right.
And then what is today? The 17th?
17th, yeah.
Okay, tomorrow, June 18th, is Paul McCartney's 80th birthday.
Oh.
And we talked about that before. That's Brian's favorite Beatle, supposedly, is Paul, but they both played bass. Paul left-handed, Brian right-handed.
Uh-huh.
But they talk about how they're truly the musical Geminis.
Totally.
They both have a fondness for each other 2 days apart in birth. Cross an ocean. Both played bass in their band, one right-handed, one left-handed. And
I'd never heard that. That's kind of a trip, actually.
The musical Geminis, Paul McCartney and Brian Wilson.
Wow.
They're both turning 80 this weekend. Guys, happy birthday to both. I love Paul McCartney and every Beatle, but those guys are important for our music.
Oh, for sure. Okay, let's get out of here. All right, thank you so much. We will see you. We'll see you in the next episode.